Welcome back, everyone. I've been away from YouTube for a bit. So, as I've been away from YouTube for a bit, I just want to reflect on Dave Allen against Arsene Makhmudov because I didn't cover it because, as I said, I was away. I was really kind of frustrated, stroke disappointed because probably like many of you, I felt that was a really winnable fight for Dave. Disappointed from a few points of view. Before that fight, Jamie Moore had said that Dave had started this camp where he left off the last one. So we are going to see Dave in some of the best shape of his life. I think probably, certainly aesthetically, I think Dave against Dylan White probably, like I said, aesthetically, that looked the best Dave Allen, the best Dave Allen condition, just from an aesthetic point of view. But I was just, again, I can't just get over how disappointed I was. I really felt Dave could win this. And I think there's quite a few factors that play into this. I think one of them is what we've seen quite a few times over the majority of Dave's career is a sparring partner's mentality, unfortunately. With the likes of Johnny Fisher, when Dave Allen knew that he was better, that's not a problem. But when he kind of, almost in an on-top fighter type sense, but when he thinks that the fighter is probably, I don't know, better, or he's not fully confident that he's the better fighter, he becomes, I wouldn't say game loser, but he certainly opted out of a few fights. And I just don't know. I don't know whether it's a question of belief or desire. To me, against Makhmudov, Dave didn't look like he had enough desire to win that fight. And this is just my opinion, and I'm watching it as you guys are. We'll watch it from outside. We're not in there eating them big shots off Makhmudov. So I get that. I get that. And this is, nothing I say is meant in a derogatory, disrespectful manner because, they're in there, okay? And respect is given to everyone who gets in there. But just viewing it from the outside, when I looked at Dave, I think one of them was desire. I mean, I think he had like a couple of flurries. And the other thing, along with desire, that to me, going back to what Jamie Moore said about the condition, I just don't think Dave was fit enough either. And I know it takes a lot of fucking steam out of you when you're taking big shots off the opponent. But there are just a few things that led me to believe I just don't think his fitness was good enough. That's one of the major problems with Dave, I think. There was... I remember listening to Dave in the build-up to that fight, and there was a point where he said, I don't really train sort of super intensity, but he's what's the word? He trains, on time, on point, he's edge, but he doesn't train with that much intensity. That's what I heard him say might have been on his YouTube channel, might have been on someone else's interview on another channel. And yes, I know that taking the punches takes out of you. I know that. Been there. But when you only had the energy to launch sort of 2-3 major attacks through the whole fight, and you launch one of those attacks and then and the round finishes and you didn't get to finish, then you come out for the next round and you haven't got enough left to carry on that attack and possibly get your opponent out of there in Makhmudov, I just have to answer the fitness, because the fight wasn't really boxed at a tremendous pace. Dave is not a mover. Dave plods forward, hands high, and I can't help thinking that if he was fitter as well, he could use his feet a little bit more, and he could have a little bit more upper body movement than he has, because he didn't really have a lot. Yeah, he uses and he tries to block and parry and catch, but a lot of it was going through. Makhmudov, a lot of what he was throwing was going straight through Dave's defence and round the back as well. The hooks were. And you just think, surely if you were in better shape, your defence would be better. And yes, Makhmudov was holding a lot. I get that. But there were times when Dave would back Makhmudov up to the ropes and he would get inside. But when he would get inside, he wouldn't throw punches. He would just lean on. Then Makhmudov would claim and then it'd get broken. So Dave wasn't even really... Yeah, and he tried the odd sort of hook in the clinch. He tried the hooks around the back. But I just can't help it. And again, this is just my opinion. Just go on what I see. And I have to stress this because I get people in the comments saying, rah, 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 you hate, rah, rah. No, I'm not on hate. I'm just saying what I see. To me, I don't think, just going back to other heavyweight fights, I mean, I look at like, and I said this last year sometime, you go back to like Holyfield Bowen. Yes, I know Holyfield was juiced to the gills, but that doesn't also aid cardio, as funny as that sounds. But the pace they could fight at, and that was not a pace, and Dave didn't throw that many punches. Makhmudov threw way more punches, and he's a bigger guy, a heavier guy, but he was more agile than Dave. He threw more punches than Dave. So it was just really disappointing and frustrating because you like, does Dave know more? Yeah, I think he does. Has Dave got more technical ability? Yeah, I think he has. And I just thought that fight was there to win. And, you know, well, we must talk about Makhmudov as well. I must admit, Makhmudov impressed me with his stamina, although it wasn't boxed at a high pace. And although Dave was walking him forward, it's not like Makhmudov was being pressured the whole time, which can empty the tank a lot quicker. But Makhmudov lasted and had a much higher punch volume you'd expect of a guy that big. And he was active, he was busy, he was just throwing a lot of shots, don't hit me shots, but he also at times picked punches really well. He picked, he threw the 1-2, then he threw the 2-1, and then the 2-2, sort of 3-2, whatever. He turned it around, he mixed it up, he picked shots. You saw when Dave was sort of his hands dropped, he'd pop one through the middle, or when there was a gap round the side, he'd throw it round the side. From that extent, I mean, Makhmudov is not going to beat any of the elites, but credit to Makhmudov, he was better than I thought, and he showed better than I thought he would. But I think a lot of that was down to Dave. A lot of the time, Dave didn't throw punches, and he said afterwards, a lot of people said I should have thrown more punches. And again, it's easy for us to say, but I was just disappointed. I thought if Dave wanted it enough, bad enough, and was fit enough, I think it could have, and he had more desire, I think it could have been different. I was listening to Dave yesterday on IFL, and he was speaking to Eddie Hearn, and Eddie Hearn was saying like Dave wanted to like either go back to an 8-rounder or a 4-rounder on a small card, and Eddie Hearn's like, no, you can't go up there 4-rounder, up there again, main event, lose, back down 4-rounder, main event again, lose. You can't do that. You can't do that. You don't have the option. I mean, you do, but in terms of, you got to look at the promoter, and you got to say, as from a promoter's point of view, say, no, you can't do that. We've invested in you. You've been main event now. You can't drop down to, fighting English level, Southern Area title level fighters. So just gutted, because I love Dave more than anyone. I'm one of Dave's biggest fans. A couple of years ago, when not everyone was watching Dave Allen's YouTube channel, I made a video saying you should watch his YouTube channel. So I love Dave, LUV. Not LOV. So, yeah, just disappointed, really disappointed, gutted, because I really thought he could beat him. And I still think he could beat him. But I don't think Dave is just anywhere near as fit as he could be objectively. When Fabio Wardley boxed Fraser Clark the first fight, now that was boxed at a pace, and they were like exhausted out on their feet from sort of mid-rounds at least onwards. And a lot of people, I remember, I think it was Duke McKenzie, said that they're just not fit enough. And I agreed because they'd boxed at a decent output. It wasn't no Bo Holyfield, but they'd boxed at an output and were like exhausted. And objectively, you would have to say their fitness is not good enough. Now, compare that to Dave against Makhmudov, who that was nowhere near the pace of Wardley Clark. And Dave was hanging out his arse. Admittedly, couldn't throw the punches. So, again, not able to go at Dave. I love Dave. I was just gutted because I think he's better than that, could do better than that, with more desire and fitter, I think he could. Fabio Wardley, Joseph Parker. This week we've got the weigh-in going on now while I'm recording this, actually, so I'll watch that. But the common sort of narrative is that Joseph Parker is of a level that Fabio Wardley's never boxed before, and he's going to be way out of his league. And there's a lot of truth to that. There's a lot of truth to that. I said after the Fabio Wardley Fraser Clark first fight that Fabio Wardley had to make major improvements, because as he goes up the level, he's going to end up getting stopped if he carries on like that. Sort of, and his technical deficiencies we can sort of allow, because He just hasn't had the time in the game. But the defence had to be worked on. The second fight, we didn't see it. He blew away Clark in devastating fashion. And then we get, did he box after that? Or was it it was Hooney after that, wasn't it? Yeah. He boxed Hooney, lost every minute of every round almost, but did not a punch from the gods, not a lucky punch. He did dip the incoming shot or slip the incoming shot and throw that sort of hook. And it was a shot that was worked on, a shot that was timed lovely. So credit, but he did lose every minute of every round. Before that, as Froch did against Jermaine Taylor, and done the same thing. So there is an element of truth that Joseph Parker is way above anything Fabio's boxed before. So kind of boxing logic would tell you this should be a Joseph Parker either knockout or points victory. I've noticed, though, in the last couple of years, I think Joseph Parker to me has been starting to look a little bit frail. I think, found himself on the floor against Zhilei Zhang twice. I just think he doesn't look like he's holding a shot. He's getting up, granted, but he's feeling shots. And I also think, if you look at the Zhilei Zhang fight, I also said in my review of that I thought Joseph Parker made that fight harder than it had to be because he stood in front of Zhilei Zhang the whole time. Joseph Parker used to have a bit more movement, and he doesn't really move anymore. He does stand in front, and that's why he found himself on the floor. And I thought with a bit more movement and being a bit cuter, he could have made that fight a little bit easier and made Zhang do the work. But he kind of gave Zhang an easy time before winning it, because he sort of stood in front of Zhang, and he can't really afford to do that with Fabio Wardley, because if he stands in front of Fabio Wardley, he's going to find himself on the floor, no doubt. I just think, and I love both these guys. I love Joseph Parker, but I do think the results have been better than the performances. I thought against Bacoli, he took a few shots and felt them. Hit it very well, but felt them. And he was also blowing after the couple of minutes, whatever it was, 5-6 minutes, whatever it was, against Bacoli. And he was kind of blowing after that. I don't like how heavy he is. I do think he's too heavy. I don't know whether they've gone to bulk him up, to add to, give him a bigger punch, make him punch harder, and maybe almost take a shot a bit better, maybe. I don't know, just a better foundation. But I don't like the weight. I think he's less mobile. I think as fights goes on, I think that weight will really tell. It should be an obvious pick, because there's a lot of talk. A lot of people saying that Joseph Parker is in the best shape of his life. Joseph Parker said he's in great form. I don't know how you measure your great form when you haven't boxed competitively for as long as what he has. He's been very quiet, and inactivity does kill fighters. We know that. Whereas Fabio has been active, and Fabio will be learning all the time. I don't think Fabio can adapt. Can learn that quickly. I don't think we should expect too much from Fabio than we did a couple of years ago, really, if I'm honest. I see this fight going like this. I see this fight going like Fabio will come out early and not really recklessly, quite carefully for him, but will let his hands go early and try and almost get rid of Joseph Parker early, like he did Fraser Clark in the second fight. I think if that doesn't work, you will then see him step off a little bit. You will then see him step off and look for Fabio to then counterpunch Joseph Parker. And then either try and counterpunch Joseph Parker with the same shot that he did just as soon, little dip to the side and become hook, or that little layback right hand that Ben Davison fighters seem to love. They see that right hand or that jab, they lay back and come up, lefty, lay back, come over the top of that right hand. That's what I think you'll see. I think it'll be Wardley come out early to try almost get an early stoppage and throw some bombs early. If that doesn't work, I think you'll see him likely probably trying to counter Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker is not the most offensive fighter. When you look at the fight against Deontay Wilder brought nothing for the majority of that fight. It took Parker rounds and rounds and rounds before he let his hands go. And even then he couldn't really catch Deontay Wilder clean. Joseph Parker is not the most offensive fighter, and there is the wars he's been in. Saying that, Fabio's been in wars, but his boxing mileage is a lot lower than what Joseph Parker's is. So, it should be an easy one to call. And yes, Joseph Parker is technically the better fighter. That's not in question. He's got the most experience. That's not in question. But I don't know if Joseph Parker, with the fact that he's now a lot more sort of flat-footed. He'll elect to stand in front a lot more. He gets hit. And I think that's enough to sort of even this fight up. And I don't know if Joseph Parker can sort of win on points. I don't think Fabio Wardley will let this fight evolve into a fight where Parker can win rounds clearly with boxing. I think it'll be too messy and probably a bit too violent for that. But who do I pick? Who do I pick? You've got the youth, the enthusiasm, and the real fucking killer, the stone-faced killer of Fabio Wardley. I'm not sure Joseph Parker is. I'm not sure Joseph Parker is the inherently nasty bastard that Fabio Wardley is. And I also don't know if Joseph Parker has the confidence and the belief that Fabio Wardley does have. I mean, when you look at Fabio Wardley and consider how young he is in terms of his skills and how his ability his ability doesn't match his world ranking or his position at all, but his confidence is through the roof. Where Parker's does, and Parker just doesn't appear to me to have that same confidence, that same killer instinct. You see it on Fabio's face in fights, and I don't see it on Parker. I don't see it in Parker's approach. I just think Fabio is a genuine. There's a side of Fabio which is pretty nasty, and he saves it for the ring. I'm not sure that's the same with Joseph Parker, and I like both guys, but I don't know. I think the variables make this pretty even. And that's not to say that Joseph Parker won't knock out Fabio Wardley, because I said after the first Fraser Clark fight, if Fabio Wardley doesn't drastically adjust his defense, he will get knocked out at a high level. Well, this is that high level, and Joseph Parker can bang, and with the extra weight, he certainly can bang. So I don't know what way to go. Do you know what I'm going to go for? I want to go for an early Fabio Wardley stoppage of Joseph Parker. There you go. I've got out on a limb and I've gone on a punt. So there you go. I'll see you all soon.